Hello, my name is Nicole So, and I'm working with Surivir, Alessandro, and Taku. Our presentation is on the atmosphere. You may ask, what is a common access resource? A common access resource is a resource owned by no one, or a public resource. Common access resources are essentially accessible to anyone, and atmosphere is a great example of a common access resource. Producers are able to externalize costs onto the environment because the environment is a resource that no one owns. The atmosphere is a resource that is accessible to everyone, although it faces a tragedy of commons that potentially occurs differently from other cases of tragedies of commons. Instead of there being the reduction or consumption of that resource, there is rather the input of various chemicals into that resource, for example, pollution, resulting in the worsening of that resource. People abuse the atmosphere, for example, in the case of air pollution and greenhouse gases.
In the past, when industries were booming and factories were being built, came the increase of air pollution being released into our atmosphere. The pollution has caused a depletion of the ozone layer. Currently, air pollution and greenhouse gases are still a threat to the atmosphere. In Canada, industries are chopping down some of the largest carbon sinks so they can get their resources. A carbon sink is a forest, ocean, or other environment that has the ability to absorb carbon dioxide. Other environments that has the ability to absorb carbon dioxide from our atmosphere. In Canada, there are large quantities of carbon dioxide that is not absorbed back into the atmosphere, but they are being chopped down. This causes the carbon dioxide to stay in our atmosphere. If carbon dioxide is constantly pumped into our atmosphere, it does not vanish into the air. It stays in our atmosphere and oceans for a long time and causes harm to the living things and increases the temperature of the planet.
The tragedy of commons and the situation of the atmosphere wouldn't occur in the same manner as many other situations of tragedies of commons, but it would rather act as a cesspool, due to the fact that in the situation of the atmosphere is not consumed by the use of that resource. It cannot face a tragedy of commons that would result in the reduction of the atmosphere. In the situation of the tragedy of commons in the atmosphere, it will be altered by an increase in the input of harmful or damaging chemicals and or pollution that would result in the worsening of the atmosphere. Due to the fact that the atmosphere is a common access resource, it has faced a tragedy of commons both historically and contemporaneously. A great example of the tragedy of commons in the atmosphere would be in China. China has had a significant amount of growth in the secondary economic sector, meaning a high amount of growth in industrial density and a growth in amounts of factories, obviously resulting in high amounts of pollution that led to the worsening of the atmosphere in the form of a cesspool. In the past 20 years, the rapid increase in industrial density and in the amount of pollution has highly worsened the Chinese atmosphere to the point where there is almost always high amounts of smog and low visibility due to the pollution, especially in major population centers or major industrial centers. China is a great contemporary example for a tragedy of commons and the situation of the atmosphere. Another great example is the Industrial Revolution. During the Industrial Revolution, there was a sudden formation of manufacturing industry, leading to the immense growth of it for the obviously for its economic benefits, which it yeah its economic benefits. Although it obviously led to a worse atmosphere because of the tragedy of commons. Generally, the tragedy of commons and the situation of the atmosphere often has occurred in a period of industrialization or growth in the secondary sector of the economy. Although it has certainly regressed over time in the Western world, in states like China, the tragedy of commons occurs to this day.
Right, so as we know, we are facing a great tragedy, and here are some solutions for this. Government organizations such as the EPA in America have developed technology such as land reuse site tools to calculate the amount of chemicals that are being gushed into the air, thus allowing the control of the overuse of the particular chemicals. NGOs such as Worldwide Fund for Nature, Carbon Trust, Earthshare, etc., also help protect the Earth's atmosphere by saving plant life that turns CO2 to O2. They help the carbon sinks they keep the carbon sinks at a minimum. Multiple governments in countries like India, South Africa, China, Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Costa Rica, and many more have started to tax businesses, industries, facilities, and factories if they were to pollute the environment in any way. This includes atmospherical pollution. There have there have also been sorry, there have also been national holidays introduced to stop people from polluting, like Earth Day. We see more in America, such as World Environmental Day and World Car Free Day, and so on. Another possible solution is private land purchase. Once a party discovers a natural resource, they can do anything with that natural resource. The same goes for the land itself. This is an insufficient use um, of the lands of the commons, and has potential to obtain the title of the tragedy of the commons. You cannot place a fence in the air, however, the air is not the problem. The problem is the misuse of the commons. That then pollutes the atmosphere. So by privatizing the commons, you minimize the chance of polluting the atmosphere greatly. The last possible solution is the investment of renewable energy like hydro, wind, and solar energy. We look at China. Throughout history, China has invested in projects for renewable energy. For example, in 2009, China invested in hydroelectricity, and they continue to use it to the present day. These projects will bring down pollution and raise the life expectancy in China, as well as clear the atmosphere, help clear the atmosphere as well, due to lack of CO2 being emitted in the air. Um, in short, this is the conclusion. In short, the tragedy of the commons does not occur in the atmosphere. However, it is heavily influenced by the users of the commons. Thank you. This was Taku, Tsuri, Nicole, and Alessandro. Thank you for listening.